it's Janelle Waz, and welcome back to another episode of Waz Reviews. Sci-fi and farming. And it's not even one of those farming episodes of Star Trek. Now, I'm a big fan of the farming video game series Harvest Moon, now called Story of Seasons. Most games in the series typically follow a guy or girl leaving behind a life in the city in pursuit of the simple life, the farming life, becoming a pillar of a rural community, and eventually getting married and starting up a family. However, there's a Harvest Moon spin-off game that goes in a different direction, a sci-fi direction, and that game is Innocent Life. Released on PSP in 2007 and on PS2 in 2008, Innocent Life follows the farming journey of an android who's destined to save his island from destruction. Marketed as a futuristic Harvest Moon, Innocent Life features the farming formula of Harvest Moon amid the backdrop of technology. We see computers, we see robots, we see automation, but it's that automation that could very well lead to the destruction of the island. For this review, I'll be discussing the PS2 version of the game, the Special Edition version. But to be honest, it's not that much different from the PSP version, except for a dictionary feature and maybe a couple of extra cutscenes. I like sci-fi, and I like farming sims, and today I get to talk about both. This is Innocent Life, a futuristic Harvest Moon. But before I go any further, make sure you subscribe to my channel. I talk a lot about Star Trek, video games, and whatever else I feel like talking about. Be great to have you aboard. We start the game, or New Life, and a name screen pops up. The default name is Life, but since I'm playing as an android, I'm naming him after the finest android to ever come out of sci-fi, Lieutenant Commander Data. That's right, Data faked his death during Star Trek Nemesis to leave Starfleet with all the honors to live a simple farming life.
It's good to be remembered as a martyr without actually having to be dead, wouldn't you say?
Oh, Waz, now you're just being silly. It's obviously not the real Data. Keep watching, my friends. Keep watching. A single number becomes many numbers, and many numbers turn into a map of a heart-shaped island with the sound of waves from the ocean crashing in the background. Not gonna lie, this is a pretty sweet intro. This is Heartflame Island, and the year is 2022. Hang on, let me check something. Innocent Life, a futuristic Harvest Moon. That's right, the future is last year. I could go on a rant about how if you're gonna create a sci-fi story, set it far enough into the future so it's not hilariously dated a few years down the road. But I won't. We see an aging scientist, Dr. Hope Grain, hard at work at his computer, filling out a registration form for Data Grain, and has the options to list him as male, female, dog, cat, robot, and other. Which I'm assuming is because the town expects to collect taxes from even your household pets. While initially going to report Data as a robot,
I'm an android.
Dr. Hope falsifies the registration, listing Data as male. Of course, the local government gets wind of Dr. Hope's false registration almost immediately. Now, you would think this would incur some pretty hefty fines from a government office, but instead they're like, okay. This right here is Data. He's a robot.
I'm an android.
Or, as the good doctor calls him, an innocent life. An innocent and pure life form that could learn to love people, not hate them. My name is Hope Grain. From this day forward, I will be your father.
This is your lucky day, Data. You found your long-lost father, and he's alive.
Dr. Dr. Hope, tells Data that he's supposed to grow crops at his farm to restore life to Heartflame Island, which has become overly reliant on technology, and that he's on a quest to become truly human.
I am superior, sir, in many ways. But I would gladly give it up to be human.
After meeting a local farmer, Mr. Gayek, and oh my gosh, why are you dragging Data like that? And getting a farming tutorial, all done through holograms due to it being winter, and staying over and meeting Gayek's daughter Marcia, Data has to spend one more night at Dr. Hope's before he can head over to his new life. And before leaving for his new life, Dr. Hope gives Data some advice. But all the knowledge in the world won't help you understand some things. Perhaps the most difficult things to understand are the human heart and the value of life.
Just human nature, Data.
Human nature, sir.
You see why I had to name him Data? I mean, how do we know that Dr. Hope and Data aren't both played by Brent Spiner?
I always loved that face.
The next morning arrives, and it's time to head over to the farm. And this shirtless, pointy-bearded fellow is going to take you there. This is Moonlight. He's one of your new neighbors and an artist. Just a moment, Moonlight. No, I want to see the farm. Don't you want to have a cup of tea before you go? Okay, you got me. I'd love to, but if we don't leave now, the sun will set. No, Moonlight! Tea! Now!
Earl Grey, perhaps.
But alas, we don't stay for tea. Truly a tragedy. But almost making up for the lack of tea is that we're farming on some ancient ruins. And I kinda like the design for this farm. Sure, we could have gotten some futuristic farm in a Futuristic Harvest Moon game, but I like that despite this being a futuristic game, it reaches towards the past. In some ways, it's not unlike Captain Picard's mindset.
Open your mind to the past, and all this may mean something.
Upon arrival, Moonlight expresses his and the townspeople's doubts about Data, but that if Data can prove himself and revive the ruins and the island, he could be a hero. But what does a day in the life of an android farmer look like? Well, in many ways, it's very similar to any other Harvest Moon game. It has the same basic ingredients, but different. And in some ways, those differences are interesting and work really well. And in other ways, they don't. Let's start with the farm. Much like any Harvest Moon game, in Innocent Life, you can till the soil with a hoe, plant seeds bought annoyingly in sets of 9 from the store in town or later from the vending machines at the ruins, water, and eventually harvest the crops to ship. At first, you only have a small area in which you can plant your crops, but you can unlock more fields if you collect 4 jewels of the same color and place them on these platforms. These jewels will also unlock various doors around the island, opening up more areas to explore and furthering the plot. Unique to Innocent Life is the rail system, where you transport crop baskets to different parts of the farm with a motorized cart, as well as automatically emptying them into your crop shipping bin. Most Harvest Moon games lack this feature, and while you could argue that this is the kind of automation the premise of the game wants you to avoid, it works and helps make harvesting from fields further away easier. And yes, while most of this sounds like your typical Harvest Moon experience, in practice, it's rather clunky by comparison, particularly around harvest time. The game definitely encourages you to plant lots of crops. Heck, why else would you have so much space for them? But it's the harvesting that makes the experience tedious. It's not as smooth as other Harvest Moon games, even Harvest Moon games from around the same time, or earlier. Generally in Harvest Moon games, you harvest a crop, you put it in your rucksack, take it out quickly again by tapping a single button that would cycle through your items, and throw it in a shipping bin. Easy enough, right? In Innocent Life, on the other hand, sure, there's a quick button to put crops in your rucksack, but not to take them out. You have to open your inventory, cycle to the crop you want to take out if necessary, select that you want to take it out, and close the window so you're holding the item. And sure, you can go over to your crop's shipping pod and empty all your crops with a couple of button taps, but if you're using the rail system and baskets, you have to take out each crop individually to put it in the basket. And you get no help with harvesting. You do eventually get a robot helper named Forte who will do almost everything else for you, but not harvesting. I did manage to get into a rhythm after a while to quickly take stuff out of my rucksack, but it was still a very tedious experience. You can also keep livestock on your farm, and they'll stay in the storage level below your room. However, I was making enough money with crops and nothing to spend it on, so I ended up not buying animals and focused solely on growing crops. I can't help but feel like I ended up missing a big part of this game, but it just wasn't worth keeping animals. Outside the ruins, though, is an entire island to explore, and this island is huge. And that's one of the things I love about this game. I love games with a huge map that I can get lost in with different nooks and crannies to discover, and Heartflame Island definitely delivers that. We're talking forests full of mushrooms, plains full of horses, desert dunes, lakes, tropical hideaways, misty lakes, 3 different mines, and even a volcano? Man, this island has everything. And of course, you'll be exploring Volcano Town, which is where the bulk of the characters live. I like the overall design of the town. It feels like traditional Harvest Moon fare, but there are touches of technology around town to make it feel futuristic. 2022 futuristic! While the town has some interesting buildings to explore, Dr. Hope's mansion and lab, the mayor's house, the local vineyard, a modern apartment building, a school, among others, there really isn't much to do in Volcano Town. You can buy goods at the Shop-A-Million store and go to Dr. Hope's for your required weekly maintenance, but that's about it. Even the townspeople aren't really worth getting to know. There's no friendship system! You can't give gifts to the townspeople! I get not having a marriage system in this game. After all, you're an android who's probably a teenager. But no friendship system? That's a major cornerstone of Harvest Moon, befriending the townspeople, getting to know them, watching cutscenes of them. It's one of the things that deepens the franchise beyond a farming sim. And making this all the more disappointing in Innocent Life is that these are some interesting character designs. I want to know these people better, but unfortunately, they don't have more than a couple of lines of dialogue and come across more like the numerous NPCs that populate towns in an RPG, not the depth of Harvest Moon characters. As you do more stuff in the game, from working on your farm to cooking and even completing story points, your stats will improve. This is a new feature and records your Innocent Life's progress to becoming more human in 6 different categories: challenge, love, intelligence, cooking, creativity, and humor. What do all these stats do? Absolutely nothing. No, seriously, they don't do anything. Not even unlocking new cutscenes or character dialogue. Nothing. And I know it seems like I'm coming down hard on this game. Don't get me wrong, it has some really great ideas. A futuristic setting, interesting character designs, heck, even the concept of what it means to be human. But it almost always falls short on those unique ideas, and it's truly disappointing. These are ideas that could have made Innocent Life unique and interesting, maybe even enough to get its own spin-off series. Instead, they're just there and don't add anything. Why even bother improving my cooking? The stat does nothing. It's not like I can use my freshly grown crops. I just cook automatically. And it's not like I can give people food. There's no gifting system. What is the point of all this? It's the illusion that you're leveling up, but in reality, you're not doing anything. Heck, let's look at my character's namesake. Data was used in Star Trek The Next Generation to explore different aspects of humanity, asking questions and trying to understand why humans do things a certain way. And he would try to do things that humans do, from artistic endeavors to raising a daughter to taking care of a pet, heck, even stand-up comedy. All to understand people and endeavor to become human. And you know what? Data was a beloved character and touched on some interesting topics.
It does not matter that we will never reach our ultimate goal. The effort yields its own rewards.
Innocent Life could have done something like that, taking the player on a personal quest on what it is to be human. But instead, we get some lines of dialogue and stats that don't do anything. And all that lost potential is really sad. But let's get back to the game. As I mentioned before, your android will need to see Dr. Hope at his lab once a week on Sundays for maintenance, which involves stepping into the Shine Pod for a scan, which can also be used to replenish your health the rest of the week. It's usually at these maintenance sessions that the plot moves forward and you have an idea of what you need to accomplish next, such as shipping certain crops or talking to certain townspeople to do a task for them. And if you forget about your maintenance, don't worry, Dr. Hope has a homing device that will automatically make you go to his lab. That sounds familiar.
Fortunately, We're only 2 days away from Starbase 416, and their laboratory can isolate...
You're right on time.
Early on, the townspeople are naturally standoffish of the new mysterious farmer, though Marcia proves to be a good friend and is always reaching out to you. It's kind of implied that she has a little crush on you, and she's one of the few people in town that knows you're a robot. While Marcia is shocked to discover that Data isn't human, she still accepts him as he is.
He accepted me for what I am. And that I have learned is friendship.
Meanwhile, rumors are erupting all over town that Flame Mountain in the middle of the island is set to erupt sometime in the next couple of years. The townspeople have fallen away from honoring the island spirits, so Gaiac hopes to hold a spring festival to assuage the fire spirit who is said to live in the volcano's peak. Gaiac asks Data to grow some crops, a nice sampling of crops, for the festival. Who knows, maybe everyone will be impressed enough to fix the North Bridge to the rest of the island. Well, an opportunity to explore strange new worlds of the island? Sign me up! Since Data's already shipped turnips and potatoes, I opted to grow some asparagus, cucumbers, and strawberries. And the day of the festival comes and it's just a bunch of people to talk to. Don't get me wrong, a lot of Harvest Moon festivals are like that too, but there's usually something else going on to make the festival feel special. This is just a bunch of people hanging out in a cave. Of course, the townspeople thank you for growing the crops, although... What's wrong with auto-farmed crops? Old-fashioned ideas like that are what's keeping the young people away from events like this. Don't you agree? No. Auto-farmed crops is what's going to roast this island in a few years. And I only wish I was talking about snarky comments. I mean literally roasted. Plus, local construction company owner Marco is using the festival to plan out a way to stop the eruption. Dig a tunnel and use super coolant to cool the volcano. Guy, I'm no scientist, but I don't think it works that way. You're basically looking to cool Earth's entire mantle, and do you know how catastrophic that would be even if you could accomplish that? But the good news is that the townspeople finally got off their and fixed the bridge. This does open up another area with a hot spring to explore, but you're stuck behind a giant tree root and a sandstorm. Eventually, you'll be gifted a dune buggy from Dr. Hope, which will make getting around the island very easy, and I love this. Harvest Moon tends to focus on horses for transportation, but Innocent Life features vehicles, and I really dig it. And don't get me wrong, I like a nice horsey to ride into the sunset, but I also like zipping around in a dune buggy. Dr. Hope also tells you to go past the desert, which is our cue that the sandstorm is over. So what exactly is there to do in the desert? Well, not a whole lot. You go past the desert to go to Mermaid Lake to talk to an old hermit woman who likes witches' hats apparently, who then magically moves the big root blocking another cave, which leads to a very misty area you can't get past. Yeah, while certain areas open up and the plot seems to move forward, the game holds you back just enough to be both frustrating and enough to keep me playing some more. It's like that book you just can't put down because you have to know what happens next. In Innocent Life, the island is so interesting that I have to know what's beyond that mist, beyond that door, beyond that bridge. It's a big reason why I really like this game. The areas are varied, more so than most Harvest Moon games, and it's fun to explore. But what to do about that mist? Well, local bar hostess Masami, a descendant of the Easter people who lived long ago on the island, walks in during Data's maintenance one Sunday and confirms that the volcano is going to erupt. While three spirits protect the island, the water spirit, the forest spirit, and the fire spirit, it's the fire spirit who's angry, and only the water spirit can quell him. And the whole reason why the island's been sealed off as it was is because ages ago, the Easter people stole a spirit crest. Masami gives you a red jewel that you can use to open a door in the ruins to get the crest of the water spirit to give to the hermit woman. The hermit woman takes the water spirit crest and gives you the forest spirit's crest to give to the mermaid, and yeah, this sounds like one giant fetch quest with not much in the middle. I mean, I wouldn't mind it so much if there was stuff going on in the middle to further the plot, but as it is, I just feel like an errand boy and most of my day is spent driving in my dune buggy and camping out until morning, no doubt neglecting my farm in the process. Nevertheless, I still love the scenery along the way. By standing at the edge of Mermaid Lake, the mermaid jumps over to shore and because this is a family channel, I'm censoring the not quite nudity but a little too close to it until her hair is strategically placed. She removes the mist from the forest, but the rest is up to me. So then it's back to the misty forest minus the mist to be greeted by some lost nature sprites who can't remember where they're going because the nature sprite of memory is nowhere to be found because his sad memories made him sad. Now, I thought it was just a matter of searching all over the area for the nature sprite of memory, but there was no sign of him. Hey, hermit lady, what gives? Hey, get your ass back here! You have some explaining to do! Now, at this point in the game, I'm at day 25 of summer, and there are 35 days in a month. And the next major plot point is the reappearance of the nature sprite of memory. At Christmas time in winter! So it's 2 months of nothing to do! I have a stupid amount of money with nothing to buy, just burning a hole in my pocket, farm work is kinda tedious, and the only thing keeping me going is the fact that I don't want to disappoint my dog. On the plus side, Dr. Hope does give you a free cat to take care of, and you could even name it. And I have the perfect name for him.
Spot, you are disrupting my ability to work.
You are given a couple of tasks to do before Christmas, and I recommend taking care of them as soon as you can. And also max out your watering can, that'll save you a lot of trouble later. And after 2 months of almost no plot developments, the Christmas party arrives, and even though Dr. Hope is in poor health, he decides to join in on the party. Oh, it's so beautiful, Data. It's like a dream world. Doctor! No. Data. The doctor is—
Oh, son of a!
Well, this is enough to bring the nature sprite of memory out of hiding to patch up the doctor, but he can't completely cure him. And I better hurry up to save the island because apparently the fire spirit can only be appeased in winter. Well, that would have been nice to have known earlier when I had nothing to do! With the nature sprite of memory back in the forest, the 3 sprites turn into the forest spirit, which is a giant tree. And by going into the giant tree, you'll find yourself in the mermaid tower. I kinda dig the design of this tower, but all you really do here is solve puzzles to climb a tower to meet the hermit woman who has the water crest, which can only be returned to the water spirit by a human. Uh-oh, we have a problem.
What's wrong? You're not going to try and tell me you're not human, are you?
Yes, that's exactly what I'm trying to tell you.
Well, why would you have human status if you weren't human?
Well, that's because somebody falsified my registration! Well, that doesn't seem to matter because the water spirit is just happy she has her crest and power back. You must combine my power with the ice grail— Oh, son of a! I wouldn't have expected so many fetch quests in a Harvest Moon game. So in order to get the ice grail from the hole in the ice, we need to fetch the fire spirit's crest from the volcano itself. Why are we walking in a volcano? But then again, props to this game for a wide range of areas to explore. Then we take the fire crest to a giant hole in the ice and place it in the ice grail and— oh, he looks happy to see us.
Oh, look!
They're really mad now.
So this is the fire spirit. He insists that this isn't enough to quench his anger and that I'm just fanning the flames. Ooh, nice one. How long have you had that pun? The water spirit, however, appears and tells him to chill. What is this? I feel good.
What is this salty discharge?
The water spirit reminds the fire spirit that they're supposed to work together to protect the world, not threaten it. Heartflame Island has been saved and Data is a hero.
How does it feel to be a hero?
You tell me.
It feels good.
I guess you were a real boy, after all. And there was much rejoicing to be had.
Data, the doctor, he's—
Dr. Sung! I mean, Dr. Hope! You did it. I know you could. You brought about a miracle. Don't worry about me. I've had a good life. No, it was a great life. And being able to talk to you to the very end makes mine complete. Farewell. I wish you every happiness.
Goodbye. Goodbye, Data. Goodbye, Father.
Data's father has passed away, and shedding a tear is Data, crying real tears, a sense of humanity from an innocent life.
Perhaps the chip is malfunctioning.
I think it's working perfectly.
The game does continue on, where you can accept a challenge from the Fire Spirit to harvest 5,000 crops within a year without the use of baskets or the rail system, or else he'll release an alien to take over the town. And yeah, I passed on that challenge since farm work is so tedious in this game in the first place, and I was ready to move on. And that was Innocent Life: A Futuristic Harvest Moon. I remember enjoying this game years ago when I first played it on my PSP, but to be honest, I have mixed feelings about it now after playing it on the PS2. It has a lot of the ingredients of being a really great game, even good enough to become a series in its own right. It blends sci-fi, fantasy, and even supernatural elements into a really interesting experience. The island is big and fun to explore, and it's never a dull moment when finding new areas. The game's art style is also pretty nice. Sure, I've seen other games around the time look nicer, and I was expecting the PS2 version's graphics to look nicer than the PSP, but the landscapes, the character design, the futuristic world of 2022 really works for me. But at the same time, there were some really great ideas in this game that just weren't executed well. The stats system that measures your quest to becoming human? Good idea. A useless stats system? Bad execution. Interesting character designs? Good idea. Characters that are shallow because of no friendship system? Bad execution. A futuristic Harvest Moon game? Good idea. A tedious Harvest Moon experience? Bad execution. And on top of all of that, the game has parts that delve into fetch questry that really hold it back. You're just bouncing from different areas and not fully taking in the scenery as part of the story. The game had the potential to really delve into the human experience with a deeper than usual story in the Harvest Moon franchise. But it's just not there. Any depth is reduced to a handful of lines that really aren't that thought-provoking. Maybe it's a lot to ask out of what's basically a kid's game, but I can't help but mourn for what could have been. That being said, do I like this game? Yes. Could it have been better? Absolutely. Is it still worth checking out? Despite its flaws, I'd say yes. Sadly, I don't think we'll see another Innocent Life game, and I think another game could have improved the annoyances I had with the gameplay to expand upon an already interesting concept. But such is life. So what do you think? Have you played Innocent Life? Did you love it? Did you hate it? Did you play the PSP or PS2 version? Or both? Would you have been interested in seeing more Innocent Life games? And what are some of your favorite sci-fi games? Please, leave comments below and discuss. As always, thanks for tuning in to another episode of Woz Reviews. If you like what you see, why not give my video a like and subscribe to my channel? Tell your friends! Until next time...
That is life.